All right, good evening everyone to the Newtown meeting October 10th, 2018. If you can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Diglio? Here. Mr. Flynn?
Here.
Mr. Schwaffer?
Here.
Mayor LaFleur?
Here. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this regular meeting was given to the two newspapers of record and posted on the official bulletin board on January 8th, 2018. Council, you have minutes from the September 20th special meeting, the September 24th special meeting, and the September 24th regular meeting. Those minutes have been emailed to you for your review. Do we have any questions, amendments, changes, deletions?
There were very minor corrections that were made, and I just wanted that noted in the regular meeting and in the special meeting with the Board of Ed. Just minor corrections.
You've already provided those to the office. Thank you, Councilwoman Diglio. Any other comments? Amendments, deletions? All right. Entertain a motion to approve all 3 minutes, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of all 3 meetings.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Diglio and a second by Deputy Mayor Flynn. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Schwaffer?
Yes.
Mayor LaFleur?
Yes. All right, we welcome a full house to the meeting tonight, as usual. Appreciate everyone for attending. It looks like we have about 40 people. So at this point, we are open to the public, and the Town Council welcomes comments from any member of the public on any topic. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit the opportunity for anyone who wishes to be heard, speakers are asked to take 1 turn at the microphone and please limit their comments to 5 minutes. The clerk will keep time. If reading from a prepared statement, please provide a copy and email a copy to the clerk's office after making your comments so it may be properly reflected in the minutes. Anyone?
Order 12 Pine Street. Can I approach with pictures here first and then
course.
go on that statement?
Yep.
I'll start from here. Is that one? Is that good? Okay, I'm here about the parking on Pine Street from Vector Labs. We have several instances where cars are getting too close to the corners. I'm afraid the emergency vehicles won't be able to make turns. I've had it already where we can't see sight lines and people almost hitting each other. We had an accident back in 1971 or 72 with fire trucks on the corner of Pine and Marion because it was bad sight line there too. We had the same situation here. I'm afraid it's going to get one sooner or later. Why do we have to have it? So I have pictures there. According to Title 39 of the parking codes of New Jersey, supposed to be 25 feet from the corner is parking, 50 feet from the stop sign. Also, with property on Marion, on parking area, it's strictly prohibited by cross the double yellow line. You have parking on one side where you have to cross the yellow line to go down the one way towards Sparta Avenue. That should be outlawed right now. Remove the line over. You're breaking the law by driving across the double line. It's strictly prohibited.
What road is that, Marion?
Marion Avenue. The WO line there. Yes. Well, I'm proposing what you can do there to help us out is put crosswalks there on the corner. That means it had to be 25 feet from the crosswalk instead of from 25 feet from the corner. That would give us actually 30 to 35 feet from the corner to give us better sight lines. And then also for future work on Furlas, they're designed that for a certain amount of people, go 130% what they expect, and then we should have enough parking for them. So this is not manageable anymore. It's getting more and more. I called the policeman for one time, and they come out and say, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "Give him a ticket." He goes over to talk to him, puts a note in the car. There's a shield in the car, a PBS shield. Next day, she parks up in my driveway, and she gives my wife a hard time saying, "Is this illegal to park here?" I don't need that. I'm gonna have for safety for everybody, not for myself. So, something has to be done here. Thank you.
So are there no signs that say no parking here at the corner?
No, none. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Park.
Hi, I'm Hank Pomerantz. I'm here to thank you. I know that doesn't happen a lot. Our lovely neighbor, Chris, and her family moved in next door, and when she found out that all of the homes on Mill Street were no longer, they were all, I believe, residential, not residential, but
Commercial.
commercial. Obviously, if you've gone past the college and looked across the street, you know that there's no reason for commercial. Well, I know, I spoke with Tom, and so did she, and Tom put somebody on the job who did a great job, and you'll be voting tonight to approve that. I just also want to say, having spent 47 years in that home, things are getting really better on the street. All the houses are done well, all of the lawns are done well, and with the exception of the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is consistently exceeded that, we're all living in a nice environment, and that's important in terms of maintaining the value of our town. Thank you.
Mr. Pomerantz, can you repeat your address for me?
155 Mill Street,
Okay.
right
And
across from the girls' soccer field.
there you go, and I think what you're referring to are some of the discussion items that we have Jessica Caldwell or Tom Fenner here to discuss with the council tonight, correct?
Okay, yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
perfect, thanks.
You have to watch out for my wife.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm
Your name?
Kathy Pomerantz from 155 Mill Street. If it weren't for our new neighbor, Chris Hansen, we would not have known about this zoning change. And I really want to thank her and her persistence, as we all should have, so this could get done. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. Ruth Villanueva, 117 High Street. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. This is a new topic because this postal office on Main Street, only God knows what's happening to them. Because no matter how you send that mail, whether it's FedEx Express, certified, it's taking more than 10 business days to be delivered, even to wherever it gets sent. And I was wondering, where's the factory that packs these mails in a second? I know everything is nearby. And today, one time my husband went to the post office and asked one of their workers, okay, one day I paid $24 because this needed to get even as an emergency somewhere. Why did it take more than 11 days? And she just told him, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer, but that shouldn't have happened. And he's like, what's going on? Do y'all need more workers? You don't have enough? Because you're telling us to do things no matter even if you pay extra, but now you're delivering things regularly. And the post office really need an investigation because yes, they'll delay your bills when everything is not even getting here on time. So I wanted to let you know that Main Street.
Thank you. Yeah, have you brought those concerns to the postmaster?
When we ask who we reported to, it's like even the nice employees in there, they don't wanna give us that information, but if you can give it to me tonight in a second and a name or even who to ask for, I'll definitely go for that already.
Yeah, the postmaster is the one that's in charge of operations at this particular site.
Okay.
And certainly the jurisdiction for the operations at the post office is a federal situation.
Right.
Not even a state or a town for
Okay.
sure, but, that I would definitely raise those concerns with the postmaster.
Postmaster, okay, so I gotta look that up to see who it is. Cause sometimes you ask these people in a second, cause he say, if I don't report it to you, who else do I report it to? Oh, right now I'm busy, I can't give you the answer. And that was them right there at that office. But thank you. Okay.
Hello, my name is Joe Etzer and I live on 65 Spring Street. I have two small things that sound really trivial to just bring up, but you know, small things add up over time. Last time I actually spoke here, it was about like the crazy amounts of litter that's on the green and like there's tons of people leave their dog droppings. Seems totally stupid, but when I go to walk my dog and I clean up after them, but I would like other people to do the same. I think the large reason of that is there's no trash can anywhere there, and actually every like Friday or Saturday morning that I go out there, I see like a whole ton of litter because there's a bunch of people that like to hang out there late at night. Like I said, not the biggest deal in the world, but super annoying to look out my window, see that in the green. And the second thing is, I think about a week ago, there was like leaf blowing happening outside my window at like 4 a.m. And I think I don't think anyone wants to live in a spot where things like that happen. I mean, I get that like maybe an event was happening or something like that has to get cleaned up, but if you want people to live on Spring Street and kind of make that like a nicer spot, then I'm not sure the right answer for that, but something kind of has to be better about that. I remember about 6 months ago, there was construction happening all through that, I don't know, around the park area, and there was like blinding lights coming in through my window all the way up until 2, 3 in the morning. So it gets super annoying, and if people are trying to move in, like, they're not gonna be as understanding possibly as I am. So just a suggestion, those two things seem trivial, if something can get done about that.
So just want to ask a clarifying question, Ms. Collector, please, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So are we talking specifically on the green space, on the green where?
Facing like first corner clocks. if you know
Okay,
that.
so the county park?
Oh.
Yes,
Oh.
okay, understood that you guys can enforce that.
I mean, you know, we can
It's like
certainly
the-
share the concerns that we're hearing for citizens for sure, but like we don't and can't, quite frankly.
Totally.
Got it.
I got that with like adding a trash can or whatever for
Yeah.
litter, I mean, that's fine. But I'm pretty sure, is it still town that's had like the lights flaring in?
So no, that would be
Oh.
the state actually, because they were doing the work.
No
until
way, really?
6.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm in the wrong spot to be talking
You know,
about
but
this.
it's all good.
That was the milling and paving.
Okay. It was a rough like 2 weeks of that just blaring.
It was rough by my house too.
Yeah.
It's not pleasant. You can hear the vibratory roller shaking the house.
Okay. But I'm barking up the wrong tree right
But,
now.
like, I feel like I'm totally giving you your product answers, right? But, it's this interesting space that we share in the town of Newton, we're in the
Right.
county seat, right?
Right.
So the one parcel you're talking about belongs to the county, and then the other issue that you're talking about is the state's issue.
Okay.
But I appreciate you coming here and at least expressing the concern, because it's, you know, obviously impacted some.
And the power tools at 4 in the morning.
The leaf-
So the leaf blowing though,
Oh,
that's us.
Okay.
We own that.
All right, I
Coming
get that
back
one
next.
thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was coming to that next, so, yeah. We'll take that one, how's that?
All right, sounds
Okay.
good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, probably, but.
Would it be 5 or 7?
Anyone else at this time?
You don't have to win.
Hi, my name is Becky Burkhardt. I live on 20 Ryerson, and I also own the Barrel House in Newton, New Jersey. I know most of you back I was here to talk about Harry Potter Day for WizardCon, as we've been working for it. I know we've had some issues with the organization trying to run the event and the costs that it's going to come to the town. I just want to advocate that we try to find something, some middle ground, maybe somewhere in between, that we can continue to have this event. I can at least, I know I'm not speaking for myself when I say to the merchants that this is very, very important. Last year was, I think for most of the Spring Street merchants, one of the busiest days that we've ever, it was the busiest day we've ever had, but one of the busiest days. It was one of those that actually helped pull me out of a bad spot and catch up to where I needed to be to continue being open. And losing that, and especially losing it, and I'm, like, there's murmurs of it continuing on elsewhere, and something that we have worked so hard to build and create, and something that was so, it felt, you know, I know it was a little chaotic, but it felt so good to see that many people come to Newton and actually, like, and want to invest in Newton. I've heard people starting businesses and buying houses and stuff after the Harry Potter event, because it seemed like it was something that the town was fun and interesting and new. And I just want to advocate that, or, you know, hope that we can push to find something to make this continue to stay in Newton, to work for the town and merchants. I'm really nervous about public speaking, so I'm just going
That's all right.
to.
The only thing that I can say to you as an update late today is that Mr. Russo is having a meeting tomorrow directly with the president and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters, so that's the latest update.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm
Pastor Todd Laddick from First United Methodist Church of Newton. I did not know you lived so close. But I'm here today also for the same reason that Becky is, having been personally involved in helping do whatever I can to get my congregation involved in the planning and the execution of the Spells on Spring Street WizardCon / Harry Potter Day. So last year's event, albeit chaotic, was such a successful event that I believe far more positive came from it than not. Since that event, which only aimed to hold people over from the parade for Small Business Saturday, business owners have opened up shop on Spring Street, people have moved here, and a very positive spark of community has been ignited. Even phenomenal organizations like Big Brothers and Big Sisters have looked to open up a location in Newton and have offered to be a part of the community building efforts here, which I think is a great thing given their track record. For me, this latest turn of events is the opposite, at least as far as I understand it, so if I'm speaking in ignorance, forgive me. But it's the opposite of what promotes good community. In order for a positive and long-lasting community to be built, there needs to be trust established between all members of the community, from its leaders to its storefront owners to its nonprofit organizations, right down to its residents. I have personally been at planning meetings for this event where town officials were present and stressed the need for communication. And I agree that communication is important, but it is a two-way street as well. Having been a part of the planning process, I know that Aaron, Becky, and the other organizers have been in communication with the town. I don't know all of the communication that's going on, but I do know that there has been dialogue. Yet this decision seemingly came out of nowhere, and I'm not aware of any communication from the town to the organizers that this was even being thought of, let alone decided upon at last week's meeting, again, if I'm understanding the details correctly. Perhaps I am ignorant of such communication, but I am certainly not aware of any. On top of that, the decision comes so close to the actual event that has been going on in planning for quite some time. While I understand that such events do cost the town money, and I'm not naive to that, I believe that this decision is small-minded in scope and vision. The decision will shut down the event altogether, bring in $0 for the town in terms of the street closing and all of that. It will also hurt businesses that are looking to bring Spring Street to life and to bring people to Newton to support our local businesses on and off Spring Street. It will more than likely result in some of those businesses moving and setting up shop in a community friendlier toward small businesses, if not going out of business altogether. This decision will ultimately cost the town more money than the event itself will cost, I think, over the long haul. Beyond money, it will cost the town the trust that has been built up between the merchants and the town leadership, as well as the growing sense of pride our merchants and others have for being in this wonderful community. And I think of #ThisIsNewton, which was springing up all over the place. My heart is with this whole community. I am proud of serving as a pastor in Newton. I love this town. I love all of you, our leaders, and I've gotten to know at least many of you, if not all. I love the business owners, its clergy, its residents. I can see such potential for positive growth in our community, and I am immensely saddened to see all this great momentum possibly be hindered by such a decision. So I offer this respectfully.
Pastor,
Yes.
why don't you tell the audience what the problem is? Bonnie, are you gonna say anything about it?
I wasn't planning on it.
Everybody can have a moment.
I will
For sure,
submit.
you're gonna submit that.
Do I submit to?
The clerk, yes.
What is the problem?
Anyone else?
Anyone want to share a problem? Better than me?
Come back up. Yep. Well, actually, you know what, Becky, I need to do it at the second public, because we have a one-turn.
Okay.
Right, yeah, we have a second public session at the end of the meeting. Anyone else? Okay, we do now have another public session. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I was looking through the agenda for today, and regarding the feral cats, did you guys define what a colony is consist of, one cat or? Anybody?
I believe we're probably going to be doing that to the animal control officer to define
Okay.
situation based.
Alright. I have a couple other things, regarding the firehouse project. I know you guys really, have strict rules about weeds and things, and it seems to me that they have, come above 10 inches on the perimeter of where they're, building that. So you might want to take a look at that. I also had a problem. I was trying to email the code enforcement officer because I got a sort of nasty letter about things in my house. And I tried to email from the website, and I got emails returned to me saying they were undeliverable, so maybe there's a problem with the links there. I tried both the code enforcement director and his assistant, so you might want to take a look at that as well. Also, regarding the letter, we all work hard here. I work constantly to try to survive with the taxes being what they are in Newton, and so I really don't appreciate getting a letter such as that from the code enforcement director. Since we had problems a couple of years ago, we had a few dismissed because they were just overstepping the bounds. So I think harassing somebody about having bags of mulch in their front yard might be overstepping. So as an FYI. Okay, thanks. Have a great day.
Anyone else at this time? Okay, we'll close this portion of the meeting and move on to council and manager report. So a couple of things. A little over a week ago, I had the pleasure of celebrating the 102nd birthday of Walter Anderson over at Bristol Glen. And talk about an amazing guy. He was in World War II, landed on the beaches of Omaha. He was a caddy for Babe Ruth, he was an avid golfer. And it was just a joy to be back at Bristol Glen and be there at dinner time and visit with so many people. And at 102 years old, Wally, mentally perfect condition, no hearing aid, no walker, like he has better hearing than my husband. I know it's on video, sorry Greg, but I mean just phenomenal details. It was like such a great experience, and he was adorable because we surprised him with a proclamation and a big cake and balloons, and says, here, this is the best birthday I've ever had. And I said, Wally, you've had 102 of them. I hardly believe that your dinner tonight with me is the best birthday you've ever had, but I'm so excited to spend it with you. And he just said, I've lived all over the country and went off to the war, and when I came back and I wanted to raise my family, by the way, 5 children, 15 grandkids, 34 great-grandkids, 9 great-great, and 3 great-great-great-grandkids. He chose to do that in the town of Newton and had wonderful things to say. But what was also great was there was somebody else at a table behind him raising their hand to get my attention, and I came over and she said, today's my 95th birthday, and this is my husband, and in October we've been married 75 years. And by the way, Wally's in better shape than he is, right? So, and then later on, the executive director says, and we have a resident next month celebrating their 102nd birthday as well, so could you come back and do it, because you did it for one, could you be here for the next? So I think the water is pretty good here in town of because things are thriving over at Bristol Glen. Thank you, Steve. Okay, and the residents just seemed really happy, and the staff was great there, and it was just fun to celebrate that time with Wally. I know that Mrs. Dixon at the last council meeting made reference to this during public portion, but I just wanted to point out in the New Jersey Herald from September 23rd in the Sunday paper, hopefully many of you saw the beautiful insert about the town of Newton, 20 pages about just all the great things going on here, lots of businesses recognized, some information about services that are offered in the town of Newton, highlighting a lot of our emergency responders, et cetera. So a beautiful insert, and I think available online too for those that didn't get the hard paper. I want to congratulate everybody on a successful fall festival this past Sunday, being down there talking with lots of merchants, looking at the old cars and seeing the kids running around having a great time. Luckily the weather cooperated, but another great time for the town of Newton down Spring Street this past weekend. Happy to report that Tom represented the town down at the Governor's Housing Conference, where we had the RPM project nominated. Unfortunately, it didn't win, but to be nominated against many wonderful projects throughout the state of New Jersey. It's nice for the town of Newton to get recognized. And then 24 or 48 hours later, to be notified by the New Jersey chapter of the American Planning Association that Spring Street has been designated as a 2018 Great Street in New Jersey. So thank you to our town planner and Tom and others for the nomination. It was nice to get that recognition, and I know that we have a ceremony coming up down the line a little bit in a couple of weeks to recognize all of the towns that have designated great streets in the state. So not all things that necessarily get put out or make the news, so wanted to make sure that we shared that information in a public setting. I think that's all I have for now. Deputy Mayor Flynn.
Thank you. I as well attended the Fall Festival, and I thought it was really well put together. I'd like to thank everybody that was involved in the planning, all the business owners. You really showcased your stuff out there. There was a nice vendor spread. The classic art participants were very enthusiastic about their displaying their hobbies. So it was really nice that the weather helped out. It was a really nice celebration. Still feels like summer, but it was a fall festival. Councilman Dixon and myself I went there twice, so on the way back about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I stopped through again, and we were able to give out some awards for the winners of the Classic Car Show, which was done by public vote. And then this past weekend, I came across at a family event. I met a Newton High School student, a junior, who started this program called Weekend Bags, and the program is designed to give underprivileged students in the area of food, toiletries, and necessities for the weekend that they might not normally have resources to obtain when they're home. So if they're part of the affordable breakfast and lunch program at the school, some meals are taken care of at that point in time. The weekend is a long period of time, and some people are not as fortunate. So she put together this program and be sending it over to Mr. Russo, and Dr. Green, I believe, knows about it. But I want to try to see if we can get some publicity around it and see if we can, help out. It's a really great program. From what I understand, she really created it from scratch. So they ordered weekend packing bags for everybody. Several weeks ago, we had the League of Municipalities, the Sussex County League of Municipalities event at the Mohawk House. We had a presentation by Sussex County College on what they intend to do over at the McGuire property. It was, if you saw or read the paper from the meeting that took place that same day at Sussex Votech, it was a very similar presentation, just given to the League of Municipalities. And there was also a very interesting presentation given by J.C. Pianell, who it was like the director of, I want to say, community outreach. He was there. He had a very interesting program about some new programs that they're going to be implementing as far as power outages are concerned. They're doing actual infrastructure upgrades to the poles with these new types of fuses that's supposed to expedite the hookup of power back after a severe storm. So we're in he also went over the areas of the state that have the most severe power outages, and we are Sussex County, Warren County, and northern Morris County is the trees. So there's gonna be more information. Jackie Espinoza from JCP&L should be updating us on that, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. So it was a good meeting. It was jam-packed full of information. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman DeBlue?
On Friday, on October 5th, I attended the 2018 ES Awards Conference in Atlantic City, where I'm happy to report that the Newton First Aid Squad was awarded the 2018 Outstanding EMS Agency for the Year for the state of New Jersey. 3 of our members, John Paul Crush, Laura Hannigan, and Kyle Wilson, were also nominated for Outstanding EMS Call, and Kyle Wilson was also nominated Outstanding Hospital Frontline Nurse. So I'm very proud of the squad because I do belong to the squad, and a lot of our members went to the community. On Sunday, I attended the Fall Festival, and I want to thank Erin for all the effort that she put into the preparation for the Fall Festival, and all those that helped her. Thank you very much. It was a very beautiful affair. Thank you. And Tuesday morning, I attended the parade committee. The holiday parade will be on November 24th. The theme will be Dreams and Festivals, and information will be going out to all organizations tomorrow morning. We are sitting down and sending everything out. And I think that's it for now. I did go to the meeting, the chamber meeting, and a lot of discussion went on about WizardCon, and I think we discussed that tonight, so I don't need to go into that. So.
Okay, Councilman Sarver?
On October 2nd, Mayor LaFois, Councilman Dixon, and myself attended a town hall at Sussex County Community College to denounce the disgusting ignorant graffiti targeting Hampton Township family. Just wanted to say that we will continue to stand against racism, sexism, xenophobia, and any discrimination, not only in Newton, but in Sussex County as a whole. I also want to take a moment to thank Mayor LaFois for being a positive force and a stalwart leader. She was the only mayor to take a stand against these actions with our congressmen and senators to denounce the treatment of our neighbors.
Thank you. Councilman Dixon?
I attended the Board of Ed meeting on September 25th. They went over some district-wide data as far as enrollment, academic achievement, academic growth, student to staff ratios, per pupil costs. One of the things that actually stood out to me when I was reading through it was the school funding. Obviously, we know has been an issue. It's at 60%. But if you look at the local tax levies, 2000 to 2010, it was 5.16%, and from 2010 to 2019, it was 1.78%, and that included decreases in 2012, 2018, and 2018. So I mean, we all understand we've been tight with our budget, and they have been too. So I just think they deserve some recognition for that. The board is very appreciative of having us have a joint meeting together. They felt like it was a very productive meeting. As at that point at that meeting, they still hadn't heard about the preschool funding. Since that time, though, it has come through that they were awarded the funding, so they will now get the money from the state to be able to provide a full day preschool for the residents. So that's good. The word they're working towards, setting that all up. So yes, we do. As Jason alluded to, we attended the event at the college. I was honored to be able to attend that event and stand there with Oro Gottheimer, taking a stand and showing that there's no place for hate in Sussex County. On October 3rd, I stopped by Hayes for Coffee with Cop. I know that council had talked about doing something in conjunction with them, and Chief Richards just expressed to me that he's very supportive of that idea. So we'd like to get that rolling. I attended Fall Festival as well. It was great that every member of the council was there at some point during the day. It was a fantastic event. Fantastic job by all the organizers. I know it's a lot of work. So wonderful. The car show was an excellent addition. So, and finally, I'd like to echo Sandy's sentiments to congratulate the squad on being the outstanding EMS agency in the state of New Jersey, and also Newton PD officers Morales and Post. They were recognized for outstanding first responder. So,
so Tom, if we could just get the police department scheduled for the next coffee with a cop. try to do a collaborative, as we've discussed in the past, a collaborative event, that would be great. Coffee, chocolate, tea, yeah, we'll figure it out. All right, Town Manager Russo, your comments?
A few things here. First of all, Fall Festival, thank you to Erin and Becky and the merchants, Tom Dust in the chamber, and Kimberly Williams on my team, and Lisa Public Works for a great event. It was a lot of fun. So it went really well, great turnout, great number of vendors. Cars had to be turned away, so I think we'll be expanding the event next year. We are going to keep it on Sunday, because I think Sunday was kind of a neat thing for people to have something to do when we're losing. So kudos to everyone for Fall Fest. Next up, in the queue, Halloween Parade. Make sure you get your costumes ready. We have some awesome prizes, and that'll be fun. So that's Halloween, October 31st. And as far as the Wizards event, we'll be meeting with my counterpart, the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters, tomorrow. We will try to find a amicable solution on the costs and size and scope of the event, because obviously there's a lot of enthusiasm on doing something. Last year was not really well organized, and it was a dangerous situation because of the volume of people. But there obviously was a great benefit for the showcase of the town and for the merchants that were successful. So we're trying to find a way to make it a successful event from a small business Saturday perspective for the merchants, provide a safe environment for the people that visit, so that when they walk away, they feel like they had a fun, fulfilling time in Newton, and does open their eyes to move to the town, open a business, visit. It's a showcase opportunity that I don't want to lose either, but I am guided by tax dollars. I am guided by Resolution 51, which the council adopted in February, that an event of this scale, I do have to have conversations about escrow for police and public works, because last year we spent over $20,000 for the event that was not budgeted. And although I appreciate the importance of having the event, I still have to manage and be a good steward of the tax dollars they can trust me to spend. So I will meet with Lori tomorrow in her office, and I will keep the council posted.
Thanks for going on that.
Sure. A few other items under the hashtag Make Newton Great Again tagline. I want to congratulate Kenny Teets for his selection to the High School Hall of Fame. I want to thank him for kind words about the housing conference. Although unsuccessful, I was proud that the European project was nominated for a statewide award. I echo the sentiments about the New Jersey EMS conference. Kudos to First Aid and also to Officer from our Allison Post. I want to mention that we did see more recognition from Trans Options for gold level recognition in the New Jersey Smart Workplaces program for outstanding achievement in creating programs that provide remote commuting options for employees. So we got that award, and we're also highlighted in your annual report for fiscal year 18 with the Safe Streets campaign that just concluded. I want to echo the mayor's sentiments about the Great Street. Actually, if I could give a little context, the email that we received from the mayor of South Orange, who runs the Planning Association, says, on behalf of the New Jersey chapter of the American Planning Association, I'm so very pleased to share that Spring Street in Newton has received the distinguished honor of being designated a 2018 Great Street in New Jersey. Launched in 2012, Great Places in New Jersey recognized as unique and exemplary downtown public spaces, streets, and neighborhoods, four essential components of exceptional communities. These places thrive as testaments to forward-thinking planning that promotes community involvement, showcases unique natural features and diverse architectural styles, fosters economic opportunity, and inspires a vision for tomorrow. Your nomination was very compelling and can certainly serve as a blueprint for other communities to emulate. Needless to say, each year the awards jury faces the daunting task of reviewing many high-quality nominations that embody strong planning principles and success stories, but yours stood out. This year, 5 new Great Places have joined the ranks of 30 other special locations throughout the state, and are featured and celebrated on our interactive map with pictures and descriptions at greatplacesnewjersey.com. And in 3 weeks, we will be invited to the event celebrating our achievement, Great Places in New Jersey award reception. Is at the South Orange Performing Arts Center, located in lovely downtown South Orange. So that is the information on that. One other recognition that I'm grateful for is I'm receiving an award from Seton Hall, my alma mater, for the marketing project we did with the students in the Stoneman School of Business. We're being recognized as the town of Newton, along with the United States Army and Merck Pharmaceutical, their Animal Health Division, on Thursday, April 11th. there will be a video on me in the town, and we will be invited to the event, so I'm grateful for that honor.
So Tom, by way of background, if you could just tell people what the project was.
Yeah, so we worked with students in the Spelman School of Business in the undergraduate program to coordinate marketing survey and to do some other investigation as to where we are with marketing and events, and the planning that went into that and the work that went into that actually created the impetus for Kimberly coming on board in her role for community development, have conversations about some additional events that we're hoping to plan in the future, price points, and other kind of marketing needs for the town. So it was really, you know, from my alma mater and now as an adjunct professor there, it was a really cool thing to go back to Seton Hall and work with the students. And it was a great honor that they recognized, you know, my efforts in the town for the event in April.
So if my colleagues will extend a professional courtesy of a couple of comments. And I want to come back to a challenge I issued each of you on July 1st. We're at the 3-month checkpoint. I'm kind of big on checking in when we establish goals. And what I asked each of you to do was be prepared at council meetings with the work to discuss and enumerate and promote the work that's done in between council meetings and the various boards and commissions that you all attend, events that you attend on behalf of the town. And I think that not only have you all come prepared and everybody brings a little bit something different to the discussion, but I think what this has allowed us to do is be a little more transparent, a little more communicative, have some discussions about things that are going on that sometimes not even the rest of us know about, and certainly lots of things that go unnoticed by the public because we don't promote that. And second to that, the other thing that I challenged everybody on July 1st was to do a better job of promoting the news and the good things that are going on in the town of Newton. And certainly the updates tonight were filled with lots of information about things that are going on. And that's not to say that we don't have our challenges and we're not always trying to improve and make things better. But certainly everyone is getting a feeling tonight of you know, some of the good things that don't always make the Herald or TAP, and that's not a criticism. I know you have finite amount of space to print, but you know, certainly by us having our meetings now taped, this is all information going on public record. And I wasn't going to bring it up, but thank you, Councilman Dixon and Councilman Schlaffer for referring to the press conference that was held at Sussex County Community College a week ago Tuesday, and I was honored to receive a call from Congressman Gottheimer's office as well as Senator Orr's office asking if I would make a comment on behalf of mayors in Sussex County and certainly the town of Newton being the county seat about the terrible, racist, hateful things that the family in Hampton have undergone by having a political sign in their yard. And I know that our newspapers of record have covered this information. But you know, in addition to Congressman Gottheimer and Senator Oroho, and we had the prosecutor speaking and a student from Sussex County Community College, and lots of other people spoke. And we all had one message about the fact that this is not a political issue. That hate does not have a place in Sussex County. We're not going to tolerate it. And one of my comments was that what happens in one municipality affects all the municipalities in Sussex County. And so it was great. I think they had expected about 30 people to turn out, and there were probably at least 100 people that turned out, in addition to the local news sources, Channel 12 and Channel 7. And I'm so surprised how many people watch Channel 12, quite frankly, given the comments that I had over the next few days. But grateful that the town of Newton was able to represent municipal government on behalf of the municipalities. And I know that the Sheriff's Department, along with Selective Insurance, where actually the family works with we're going to come back to order these. So up next, we have a couple of items for discussion, including our master plan revision and the permitted uses in the SD3 zone. We're going to have those discussions led by Jessica.
Hi, Jessica. Hi, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. As you said, I'm here tonight to discuss an update to the master plan. Required by municipal land use law every 10 years, we need to at least re-examine the master plan. The last time we did a complete update was 2008. So we're in the year where we're starting to take a look at it. And a re-examination doesn't mean that we're going to reinvent the wheel. I think that we did, as many of you recall, we did quite a large update at the last time. We sort of switched the way we look at zoning. We moved to form-based code, where we have sort of a compact downtown and move out from the center of the town. So we recommended changes to the ordinance, and the ordinance was dated in 2012. So it's really only been, 5-6 years that the ordinance has been in place. So I think that what we're really looking at is revisions, tweaking around the edges, looking at what's working, what's not working. We've gotten good feedback from the zoning officer in terms of implementing the ordinances, and we've been tracking things as they go through planning board to see, where some of the, sometimes it's just things you don't expect and happen as you're implementing a new ordinance. I think we can clean it up, because part of a master plan re-examination, part of it is looking at, our demographics and our data and our census data, if anything's changed, and look at if our policies and our general land use policies still fit, what's going on in the municipality. And I think to a large extent it will. We've already started pulling some census data. And interestingly, 2010 showed about a 3% loss of population in the town, whereas the county was still growing at that point. But since then, now in 2016, the county's showing a 3% loss, whereas Newton's about still status quo and isn't really, it's like a 0.2% loss. It was basically statistically even. So I think the town is tracking a little different, maybe a little ahead of the county in terms of the population loss, and hopefully starting to come back. And I think that's in part due to our land use policies. So I think, what we're looking at is just checking to make sure that we're still on track. We're also looking at the ordinance to make some changes, where needed, and just fine tune things. So, and I'm happy to take any input from the council in terms of if you see things or have ideas. It doesn't have to be tonight. Certainly can reach out to me, or through Tom, reach out and know that we're in the process of doing this update. Most likely be working with, we have a technical review committee of the planning board, which is sort of an existing subcommittee of the planning board. So rather than creating a new subcommittee, we'll most likely be working with that committee just to develop the re-examination report, and then that goes through the planning board for adoption, and then obviously everything comes to council for recommendations for changes to ordinances. So you would look to next year, you'll probably have a pretty good sized list of things that the planning board recommends, and obviously everything's up to your decision in terms of implementing those.
Yeah, so just a couple of comments, because in 2008 I think there were only two. No, until 2010. Right? Oh, so it's just me. So in 2008, when we underwent that process, it was a big process. We knew that we needed to address some big issues as it related to our master plan. We did a master plan rewrite. We went to the trans zoning. We got input from stakeholders and constituents, and had lots of meetings, and it was a lot of work. And I think since then, what we've seen is that it has been proven to be a good plan for the town in the way that we've outlined, whether it's development of businesses or residential, or the special zones, to the college, the hospital, and others. It certainly has been supportive of various redevelopment efforts, and it's streamlined a lot of processes at the planning board level. So, I wanted to reiterate what Jessica started by saying, is that every 10 years we are required to do an update or a review, and that's according to municipal land use law. Certainly the input from the planning board is important for those of you that haven't looked at our master plan. But I would encourage you to do that, just to see if there's anything that we want to discuss further, and know that over the last 10 years we have made adjustments and changes as things come up, because as you mentioned, you don't have a crystal ball or a magic mirror to look at what, businesses, for example, might want to come in, right? So when we did the change of zoning to allow for the tattoo shop, that wasn't something that was anticipated back in 2008. And so those are changes that we make kind of as we go. But this 10-year review is required by law, and it's going to be an ongoing process. But, please do take a look at that. And Jessica, you're always a great resource. And by the way, I noticed that the building is almost filled. You have almost all your tenants filled. I noticed on Sunday, right? So I'm sure you're going to be coming back to the council after you meet with the TRC and get input from others.
So we'll be looking a lot at goals and objectives. That's one good place to start if you're looking at the master plan. And if you have ideas about things that the council's been talking about and that you have specific goals that are coming to mind, certainly if you want to share those with me and the committee, that would be great. Also, just in terms of knowing the background, I think what the mayor said was true. In 2005 and 2006, there were really large public involvement sessions that were a precursor to the master plan. And since then, we've also held, I think in 2010 and then again in 2012, a lot of public involvement sessions for feedback on our circulation plan element, and then we did a downtown vision plan. So, all of those have kind of been ongoing, feeding into the master plan, but this 10-year review is a good time to just take a look and see, what's changing. And I think we're on a good track, and I think the plan is a good plan for the town, and it's just really trying to fine tune it.
I think it also gives us the opportunity to look at trends and changes on the landscape of planning in general, right? And that's where your expertise comes in, and you staying on top of what's going on. I mean, that was partially, in part, why we looked at going to trans-site zoning, was because that was, best practice for a town such as ours, limited square miles, and the mixed use of all the properties in the town. But the other thing that's, I think, critically important to the process is that environmental scan, right? So how have demographics changed? How has, the businesses changed, the census changed? And from that, we get a lot of information about, from a planning perspective, what's going on in town, which enables us to do, future planning and potential outreach to.
Yeah, I think a lot has changed since 2008 in terms of trends and land use, but I think they're good trends for Newton, because a lot more people are looking to locate in more urban type areas where they can walk to places where there's, smaller homes and not larger lots, and having public water and public sewer is positive for development right now. So I think all of those things, a lot of the trending changes since 2008 are good for the town. I think we're just going to start seeing them soon. It's not, we're kind of still on the edge of it, but 2008 was sort of, when the market fell, and, a lot of things were changing at that time, and there was population loss, which is interesting to me, a little earlier in the town of Newton than in the county as a whole. But I think because the trend is we're almost neutral, is hopefully shifting back to growth.
Jessica, will you be incorporating the green infrastructure in the revisions?
Yes, absolutely. We met with Louise Wilson from New Jersey Future, and her team has recommended some changes to some of our stormwater management and just some general policies about trying to encourage green infrastructure with new development. So she gave us some resources for that, and we're going to continue to work with her. And Tom's, asked to set up a meeting with them again to continue to incorporate those recommendations and changes.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Flynn was able to meet with her, and then the two of us were able to meet with her and some others when we were down taking a look at the rain garden at Memory Park a couple of weeks ago. And she also said that there have been some legislative changes around green infrastructure that we should or would want to be interested in hearing about as we look at the master plan update. So I think that's all timely conversation.
So a couple things that come to my mind. I think we were a little bit ahead of the curve with the transect zoning. I still haven't heard of a town that's went to a full transect zoning before in New Jersey. A lot of towns will do these like little redevelopment zones and apply transect zoning. One of the things that I think we kind of missed a little bit in the 08 master plan was something that really came to fruition when we were analyzing the development of the McGuire site. And it was all about putting, people that live, putting feet on the street with people that live in a 2 to 4 minute walk of the downtown. I feel like it was more centered on commercial and businesses and redevelopment, where I know it permits apartment buildings to a certain height, but a lot of developers gave us criticism, like there's just not critical mass here to influence someone to even make an investment in a commercial property of any, especially anything that has to do with a chain that uses like demographic analysis to determine where they go. It's just not that many people that like live. This isn't like their backyard. So I think that should be analyzed a bit more thoroughly.
Okay.
I know it's permitted, but if there's
I think that's a good point. I think there's been a lot of focus on the commercial in the downtown because that's always, been an issue for Spring Street and trying to encourage commercial, and maybe not as much focus on how to get more residential there. Because retail has changed a lot. It's just more difficult to fill the spaces, and there may be ways to encourage more residential to offset that. And really, the way to encourage more retail now is to have more people. And, encouraging more people to live in the downtown and creating more spaces for people to live in the downtown. That gives this automatic 24-hour venue for everyone to, they're gonna shop at places that are, right around the corner.
Yeah, I think we thought that people were gonna come if there was a lot of businesses, and they had this mindset that like, it's just gonna draw people from outside, but that's not exactly the case these days. I mean, there's I can't even count the number of working professionals and people living on the street in market rate apartments, but in '08, there was none.
There was none. Well, and don't forget that before we did the master plan update, apartments weren't permitted on Spring Street over. So that was one of the big changes. I mean, there was a time where the thought process was that, the apartments were, Section 8 or, had a bad element, or maybe they were SROs, like single room occupancy, and trying to sort of move those out. But just the idea was just make them not permitted, and that offices would locate over, and that just didn't happen, and ended up with a lot of actual vacant space just over commercial. Like the Style Shop got renovated, there was nothing over that commercial space before we redid the master plan, and they put in 8 apartments, and now there's 8 beautiful apartments there, market rate, gorgeous, all hardwood, nicely done. Where people can live now and frequent the downtown, and, people who would be able to shop and be able to afford to spend money in the downtown.
Yeah, I think the density analysis is gonna be key because we've had 2, unofficial kind of case studies, right? So you have the RPM building, which is now full, and the Style Shop, 8 units above full at market rate, and, there's, if you were on Spring Street on Sunday at the Fall Festival, yeah, right. So we have a couple of buildings where developers have invested money, and that those apartments are at market rate, and young professionals that are moving in, that are employed locally, and are able to walk or bike to Thor Labs or wherever.
Right.
And I think we're going to see a few others, just from what I've heard from some developers interested. So I think that we have some anecdotal information now to kind of support some of those changes that we're making.
I think on the residential scale, we want to look at allowing people to maximize the small lots that they have through, a lot of people want outdoor generators now. There's like offsets that might need to change to accommodate outdoor generators. If someone, improves a house, puts an addition on a house, that's something that they might want to do. Accessory dwellings, looking at, detached garages. I know they are permitted, but I don't exactly know what the offsets are to allow people to maximize the use of their lot. Maybe like I'm just talking, thinking at the same time, but like if there's there's any restrictions on grading, small amounts of grading, small retaining walls, those should be like incorporated into, I would think more of a permitted use so people can maximize. You might only have a 40 by 80 lot, but if you want to grow and have a family, you want to be able to, you might need a double width driveway, you might need to put a garage, things like that.
Yeah, we've had a lot of issues with the way that the parking's addressed in the ordinance. We had very lofty ideas about all the parking being behind everything and hidden away, and some of the lots are just so small, it's just really, people can't do it, and they end up in a situation where they either can't add space to park, they can't expand their driveway or add a driveway, and they just have no other option besides a variance, which is expensive, so usually they don't do it. So I think that's good input in terms of allowing people to sort of be able to get the most they can out of the small lots that do exist in the town.
Because people that want to move here, they're going to be like, oh, I could eventually in like 4 or 5 years, if I wanted to put a garage there, but I can't put it 15 feet off the property line, I can only put it 5.
Right.
So, looking at things like that, and the variance just scares people away.
Yep.
I think it's a good plan, actually influence Ralph's issue about parking again on the street. It makes no sense to that, which allows people to be creative in their parking situation.
Yeah.
We even actually on the planning board level, we did allow, there was one house that.
Conversation right now about it, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right, it's still, but there was just no parking available for this house.
It's tough, I mean,
It's
the
not.
town developed a long time ago, and people didn't have cars at one point, so there really wasn't a space put on the lot
Yeah,
for the cars.
no driveway, no
Yeah,
on-street parking.
this house is, no
And then,
driveway, no
when
on-street
you
parking,
have
and the
snow
house goes to the
removal in
lot
the
line.
winter, they can't park on the street at night, and it's tough, so I think we need to be more creative and flexible with that in order to just let people, get their cars off the street and have a good place to park them.
Well, that's the whole intent of the, every 10 year being required to.
Right, I
to
mean,
so
it took some
good.
time just to kind of see how it was going.
Absolutely.
It's all good input, and thank you, and I welcome, send any other ideas to Tom and he'll get them to me, so.
Anything else for Ms. Caldwell about the master plan revision update? Okay, so we're gonna stay with you and move to the permitted uses in the SD3
So
zone,
the
which
next
we had
item
neighbors
is,
talk
is
about.
one of those sort of, tweaking and refining. When we did revise ordinances, we created a special district for, areas within the town, and the particular area that we're talking about, SD3, sort of encompasses Water Street, all along 206, where you have the, Dunkin' Donuts and Walgreens and Home Depot, and so you have a lot of big commercial uses, and that does wrap around onto Mill Street. So that zone did not permit, single-family residential, is primarily focused on commercial uses, which the bulk of the zone really is. But there is a spot on Water Street where there's a row of houses, and there's a couple other places where there are some existing single-family residential. And taking a look at it, it was brought to the town's attention that there are some people who like their homes there, want to stay there, they're having some problems with financing, because when you become a non-permitted use while you're grandfathered in and you can stay there, as long as if something happens to your house, say it burns down, you can't automatically rebuild it. You can go to the planning board and get approval to rebuild it, but mortgage companies don't necessarily like that, because that doesn't mean that you can automatically, recoup your investment if needed. So that was the issue that was brought to us. And we can incorporate this into the master plan process, but we did put forward an ordinance for the council to consider. I don't think it's in conflict with the master plan. I'll send it to the planning board for review. I don't think it necessarily is, because what it really does is just allow existing single family to remain as permitted uses. Sort of with the idea of allowing just single family as permitted uses, but really don't want to introduce more single family into that zone. I think that the existing is fine and can work where it is. But to have additional, let's say someone tried to subdivide a lot and do single family on 206 is just not really what we're looking for. Not that they would, but you don't wanna open the door. So it's really just to permit existing to remain, they can be rebuilt, and they would go under the bulk standards of the zone that they were in prior to the adoption of this ordinance, if, say, it was burnt down and needed to be rebuilt. Because the new zoning standards don't reflect single families, so we wanted to be able to give them an option to rebuild. And I believe they were R2 primarily before the new zone came in, so they would be able to rebuild under the R2 standards of the old ordinance.
So Water Street wrapping around to Mill Street through North Park Drive.
Right,
Right,
right.
so it's the houses that are from that corner all the way up to PSS.
Yeah, so basically that, yeah.
No, but and Water Street too.
Well,
There's a few over by
Yeah, they're on
mine,
this side, yeah.
by Memory Park, I think
Yeah.
there's a few residential back there that are also in the same zone.
Correct, that's true.
So I didn't wanna leave them out either, if we just looked at the ones on Mill Street and then later on, people in that area had an issue, figured we'd just cover everyone in the zone. Because most of the other zones allow some type of residential, so they would be able to, rebuild under the existing ordinance.
So the council received a draft copy of the ordinance in question or in discussion
Right.
in their packet. So do we have any questions regarding specific language or anything like that that you recognized in prep for tonight's meeting that you want to discuss with Jessica? No language changes, all right, so I think we're good to move forward with that. And this is how the process is supposed to work, right?
Right.
So active community members bring it to attention and we make the adjustments, so appreciate everybody participating in the process. And this is an example, as I mentioned before, that as things come up, we've been updating the zoning and master plan as we go along.
Sounds always very responsive, it's just, you can't think of everything.
You can't foresee everything, absolutely.
I think making the change to allow office space on the first floor of Spring Street was a very good idea because you were able to take advantage of that to fill a vacant space. And, it's open for anybody else to do that, but I think, that was something in '08 that was like, it was get the office up on the second floor, but now, I think it's, cause it's like really, it's all inclusive. If you have an office and retail in the same establishment, you can really it can be done.
Yeah.
I think you've exemplified that with the project.
So Deputy Mayor Flynn, you're referring back to the first discussion item about the master plan.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all right, just for.
That was an example of tweaking around the edges.
Yeah, that's
Really
okay.
went, definitely.
Just wanted to clarify because we have people in the audience that are interested, obviously about the SD3 zone, and we will have another public comment. I see, people that wanted to discuss.
Could you give us like a easy bunch of words on what you're doing?
So, because this specifically refers to your property, so I'll use you as an example, Mr. and Mrs. Pomerantz.
You can use me.
So, as it stands right now, if, God forbid, something should happen to your house, and there was a fire, you would not be permitted to rebuild your individual, single dwelling home as it stands right now. Right, you would have to come to the planning board, you would have to ask for a variance, it's a little bit of a lengthy process. And so what we're doing now, the proposed ordinance is going to fix that and correct it, because you already grandfathered in, but the language isn't as clear to the ability for you to rebuild should something happen. And so we're just tightening that up. In other words.
And that includes all, I'm sorry.
That's okay. You know what? I'm gonna have you come back up to the microphone in public session. I wanna make sure that we're following the rules, but, that little synopsis, and Jessica, if you wanted to add anything.
No, so yeah, it would be permitted use, which means that you can, for a single family, you come in and get a building permit if something happened to your home and you needed to rebuild part or all of it. And the standards would be to the ones that were in place before this ordinance was adopted, so, if you did need a variance from that, then, you did, but you can, move your home or what have you, and it should line up pretty well, I think, with the existing homes.
Right, to rebuild in kind.
Yeah, yeah, so there shouldn't be any issues once It needs to be introduced, sent to the planning board for review, and then second reading.
And,
And my suggestion is send it to the planning board because there's no November meeting, so.
Mhm.
get
And
this-
there's a planning board meeting in a week, so,
So we'll get this to Kathy tomorrow,
Yeah.
if we can.
yeah,
Put it
yeah.
on the agenda for Wednesday.
Yeah.
Comes back to you guys
Yeah.
to introduce it.
And then you don't have to refer it in between, you can just do first and second readings,
right,
so.
because we have a planning board meeting this week, so in addition to that, we will be expediting the process, so this happens before year end. So Jessica, I'm gonna ask you to just kind of, hold tight and stay here, even though we have another discussion item, in case we have some questions in the next public session for you to answer, if that's okay.
All right.
All right? Mr. Ferry. Next up, we're gonna be talking about, water sewer connection fees, and so we have, with us tonight our town auditor, Tom Ferry. And for new council members and the public certification, we are required to do an annual analysis of our water sewer connection fees. And so, Tom, I'm going to ask you to give a little bit of background about the process and where we're at, and then I'm sure you'll follow up then with your findings.
Sure, thank you, Mayor and Council. As the Mayor mentioned, this is an annual process that is not required, but is required to be done after the adoption of your budget. And what it basically is a recalculation of your connection fee for your water and sewer. What this means is that people that are already connected have been paying basically for the debt service and for the improvements that have been made throughout all these years. These people that are connecting now basically got a free ride, and the people that have been connected have been paying their share. So what this does is basically, it's a recalculation in accordance with state law 48:31-11. It's a very specific set of rules. It basically tells me as the accountant auditor that you take A multiplied times B divided by C, you come up with a number. It's very specific. So it was 2 years ago, I did a catch-up that hasn't been done for a while. Mr. Russo asked me to update it as of the latest numbers, which I basically used 2017 water and sewer user numbers by gallons and by a number of users. And the reason why is because I don't want to estimate 18. I want actual numbers. So numbers that we use for calculation for the water and sewer are actual numbers for 2017, and the expenditures are for 2016. So based upon all those numbers, I come up with the new debt service, I add in new improvements, I use the previous years, I come up with a new number, we update it. So this year I had to do an update of 16s, and I did an update of 17s, even though I really didn't need to, but I just wanted to go back and make sure those numbers look comparable. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I know it gets a little more complicated than that, but that's, you have a handout. You have a handout that I basically state kind of like in plain English, the law, how it's calculated. And then I move on to the actual calculations themselves for the water connection fees, based upon.
Tom, one second, does everybody have that document? It's in our shared, okay, just want to make sure everybody's looking at it. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So we have the water connection fee calculation, and all those numbers come from backing schedules that are attached, and the sewer connection fees. I also have the water and sewer usage numbers. I also have the expenditure numbers for the water since, I'm gonna put my glasses on for this one. 1989, 2016. So I went back to 1989 because I think that was the year that we actually had it redone with the previous administration. I wasn't here yet.
Nor was I.
So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. if you go to, I don't know if they're page numbered. So for the water connection calculation, we have connection fee per service unit of $3,759. And for the sewer connection fee, the connection fee per service unit is $6,011. So those are the newest and bestest numbers that we have.
So Mr. Ferry, can you just clarify for the public that these are new connections and that there's not going to be a change to?
Yeah, this is not a water and sewer rate based upon your rate. This is businesses or new development that have not been connected to the sewer that are in the sewer service area, that they get charged this fee, again, to pay for the people or to defer the cost of the people that have been paying all those years for the debt service for improvements, for the actual infrastructure, and for improvements. This money goes into the budget, and it helps defer the user fees for the people moving forward.
So just to be clear, this is on new water sewer connections and hookups and it's delineated to identify residential versus commercial.
If you say defer the fees, generally the fees were the same for many years. They recently went up due to a study that we did in 2016 because they needed to, because our budget didn't support the infrastructure improvements that were needed, but they're really not going to go down, right? I mean, like, you're not saying like, unless there were to be so much development, but that it would.
It's a possibility.
That would
I mean,
offset the budget, but then you would have to make an improvement to the sewer that would
Offset.
require debt service.
Exactly, yeah. So you're right. Maybe I used the incorrect term, but it does bring in additional revenues to help support it instead of defer, support the water and sewer revenues.
Yeah, and then directly be used for improvements, which we pay for in cash, generally rather than debt service on the water and sewer side.
Yes, and we should be reminded, based on the presentation at the last meeting, we know that we have some projected expenditures that are being suggested to water and sewer infrastructure and some work that's going to have to be done and has been itemized out over the next 10 years. So, we already know that that's coming down.
And that kind of emphasizes the importance of looking at this and adjusting the fees so that we can be prepared for all that stuff.
Yeah.
Tom, do you happen to have the old total fee number, water sewer, is around 8,400?
No, the old number, I believe,
83.
I have it from 9,300.
No, the old number before we did the change in 2016. No, you just said it last meeting.
No, when we did ordinance 2016-17, it was 9335.
9335, I believe it was 8,400 before that.
And going forward, we're looking at 9770. So that's the increase over the past couple of years.
So any.
Yeah, it used to be 8,400 in the old days. Going from 8,400 to 9,300.
No,
Now to 97, which is still less than the other towns we've talked about in the last meeting.
Right. Any other questions for Mr. Ferry? So I know that you, on a side note, have been busy, and I know that we're starting to work on budgets for next year, and Dawn is crunching numbers, and Tom's starting to meet with all the department heads, right? So we look forward to seeing you back again in the February timeframe as we look at the budget.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions for Tom? Okay. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
that concludes the three scheduled discussion items that we have on tonight's agenda. So at this point, I am going to reopen the meeting to the public. Same rules apply as last time. Please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. 5 minutes, prepared statement, please give it to the clerk. And
Ralph Porter, 12 Pine Street. First of all, I want to thank the Newton EMS. 2 weeks ago tonight, I was in the hospital. They were rushed to the hospital. They were excellent crew. The 3 members who came were the 3 members that she mentioned. That's excellent. The firehouse is coming along very well. I'm really happy with that. Hopefully the steel comes because it's going to be blocked. Tomorrow, it's going to be blocked. You want to get that before you know that. I know that. So I hope that goes good. The street cleaning has been excellent on this. For the last year and a half, it's been excellent street cleaning. We haven't had it that good in several years. One question I have with the parade. I'm working with a woman from the First Methodist Church we're going to have a bicycle. I talked to you about that before. A bicycle and stroller tricycle decorating contest. The Chamber of Commerce has agreed to it. We want to have a police officer just to make sure they're safe before they get on the road, so I don't have any accidents. Would you be able to supply a police officer for that?
Yeah, we're gonna have officers, right? We can do that.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. And
They're gonna be there anyway, so.
Yeah.
Kimberly coordinate that with.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Mel Dennison, President of the Greater Newton Chamber of Commerce, business owner on 18 Church Street. I just wanted to make some comments, based on the fact of the meeting that happened last Thursday that has created quite a ruckus, and hopefully this meeting that's happening tomorrow is really, the town is going into it with an open mind. Some definitely considerations to be given, because this really started back prior to May. Many of the people that are not on the board, your council today, were at many of those meetings. The past mayor, the deputy mayor, they knew of all the things that are now all coming up as surprises and changes at the last minute, 7 weeks before the event. Kind of a major decision that you guys made when you kind of said that. And hopefully this meeting tomorrow will change that, because there's a number of people that are sitting in this room right now that have expended a ton of time and a lot of money, because these people have already gone out and made purchases that are going to be used at the event. And it would be a great injustice that this event doesn't happen to these businesses, because they've got lost money then. And the time that they could have devoted to other things in their businesses. So hopefully, this meeting tomorrow really does generate something, positive, and that we do have this event work. If it doesn't, this event is going to go somewhere else, and the attraction is going to be taken away from Newton to another town, probably. It's not just going to disappear, and I think you guys know that can happen. So I really wanted to make sure that we, again, have an open mind when you sit down tomorrow morning, and make sure that we can try and make this event work. The second thing I wanted to bring up was something that I brought up at meetings earlier this year, and that is in regards to Halsted Street. I'd like to know if the town has looked at the situation there at all. Obviously nothing's been done to change the problem, but ever since we had the redirection of Spring Street, it has caused major traffic problems on that street. I will tell you that probably 1 out of every 15 times, if I'm lucky, I'm able to drive down that street without having to pull off between cars and by driveways, so that the cars can come the other direction. I think we're just waiting for a major accident to happen, and because this is officially on record, I think the town may share in some liability at the time that this happens, because I'm sure that people are going to go back after the town and say, hey, you guys knew about this problem, you've chosen to hopefully not ignore it, but I've heard nothing further. I know I brought it up probably at 2 meetings, one earlier this year and one late last year. Nothing has ever been said back to me personally, but I don't know that anything's come up to committee, but obviously, if you have made a decision, obviously, is that you're not going to do anything. So I don't know which that is, whether it went by the wayside and you have forgotten about it, or chosen to forget about it, or hopefully you'll revisit that before something happens. Thank you.
I just figured I'd pop up and clarify any thing that I heard a couple people asking about the Wizard Con.
Name and address, please.
Oh, sorry. Becky Burkhardt, 20 Ryerson Avenue, business owner of Barrel House. Last year, when the Harry Potter event went on, we basically, I think as most people know, it kind of went viral 10 days before the event. And so after that, we've been trying to organize a way to hopefully keep that momentum going, but be a little bit more structured and set up in the way that we were doing it. One of the things we realized pretty early on is that if we were going to have any sort of scale of event that day, what we would need is more volunteers and people to help run it and organize it. We were all stuck in our businesses, and basically nobody could get out and monitor the street. That's where Big Brothers Big Sisters stepped in, and they wanted to work on this as a fundraiser for their organization. They're a good organization that would provide a lot of volunteers to help make sure that that structure and setup and organization is like down pat, and we can all focus on our businesses and make sure that we can keep things running smoothly on our end, and they can make sure things run smoothly on the street end. So we've been working for a while to get this set up. Big Brothers Big Sisters has put a lot of time, energy, effort, and money into making sure that this event is well organized and well set up. They've hired a PR team to make sure that in terms of copyright, that we won't be sued, that the town is covered. Their insurance is covering the street. They have a bunch of volunteers setting things up and making sure that everything's like pretty much set and ready to go. Originally, we were told that we could sell tickets for every parking spot that was secured. You could sell 2.5 tickets. They secured 7,000 parking spots, which means 17,500 tickets. In the meeting that happened, that got reduced to 7,000 tickets, and they were saying that there needs to be a $20,000 fee put into escrow so that for the police, DPW, fire department, EMS, et cetera, et cetera. I totally understand that. I, as a business owner, do not want to be a burden on the taxpayers. They also pay my bills. I completely get that, but the fact that this escrow came up just last week, 7 weeks before the event, that $20,000 bill needs to be put out is a little hard, and it seems like it's almost set up to make it so it's almost impossible for Big Brothers Big Sisters to be able to make that event happen with that short of notice and that big of a bill. So I just want to say, going into the meeting tomorrow, I know that they're willing to meet somewhere in the middle. I'm hoping that we can maybe set something up so that you guys can also meet somewhere in the middle. Thank you very much.
Good job.
First of all, I want to really thank all of your staff and your team to help us with the problem. I'm Chris Hansen. I'm 161 Mill Street. I bought a house without any indication whatsoever that it was a commercial district. There was no indication any place. None of our neighbors knew about it, and so all of a sudden I found out. I bought the house cash. I knew I had to rehab the whole house. It's almost 2,100 square feet, but every single inch needs work on it. So this was a huge disadvantage when I found out. First of all, it's uninsurable to the full value. I must keep a low profile for my insurance company, but because it's not residential, it was really a huge issue, but it was impossible to get a loan against it. So it's kind of like a farmer, I'm land rich, right? But no cash flow. So I truly appreciate that you understand that it was tweaking that needed to be done and you're gonna expedite it. What I don't understand, and I'm not overly obtuse, but I'm just not quite getting it, but what I think, or what I read, is not what I think you said. So what it says in here under section 5, the effective date, is it says, first of all, today I would have thought this was the first reading, but apparently it's not. So it needs to go to the planning board, which is not even listed on here. And so you're expediting getting it to the planning, and you're gonna reduce it so it's not gonna be two readings, right? Is that what I got? So where it says November 26th, is that really gonna be November 26th?
Yes.
So it's still gonna be the November 6th that it should get approved, right?
Yeah, what happens is this is going to the planning board next week because there is no November meeting. They'll discuss it. I assume they'll approve it. The council will introduce it at the October 22nd meeting. It'll get advertised. We don't have 2 meetings in November because of Election Day. We have one, so that meeting at the end of November would be the
Okay.
second reading and public hearing.
So I'm just gonna be very parochial about it. The bottom line is, November 26th it happens, is effective. I can get my letter to the loan police, so they will actually then be able to move forward with the loan, because it's all being held up. I mean, I've been at this for 4.5 months. So, is that correct? It's gonna say exactly what it says, which means it can be rebuilt on the current site, which is what the issue is.
Assuming that, you know, the planning board approves and then the council approves and
Right.
we have a process, that's law, driven by law. But, you know, you heard the positive conversation
Right.
tonight and.
Well, that's what the words say, so I
Well,
mean,
it won't be codified on that day, but you'll have an ordinance to show
Not
that
an
you're
adopted
changing.
ordinance.
That's
You'll
all
have an
I
adopted
need.
ordinance that you can show.
That's all I
the
need,
bank.
right?
It should be.
Okay, and then I just want to give some just general comments as being a newcomer. Nothing to do with my issue that I came to about, but I think Pastor Todd would appreciate this comment. It's important sometimes to go into your business meetings or your documentation or your websites or whatever communication skills you have. And I know you said you work with Seton Hall. But with eyes that if they don't know your nomenclature, I'm an electrical engineer, so I understand acronyms better than anybody. You're talking about them like everybody understands them. I would comment, especially when you have something that was as grossly unresponsible in another town, that we would have some idea. I will tell you, I do not take a newspaper, and it's going to be offensive to somebody, but my husband was killed getting a newspaper. He was killed, so I don't carry a newspaper. You know, what I depend on is social media. What I look at is the alerts. When I'm seeing either I'm not signed up as a newcomer to the right social media, because I'm used to in Morris Township and Morristown be getting blast emails for the good stuff and the bad stuff, trees are down, not down, as well as events. So I didn't even know about some of these events, and how I was finding out were by the signs on the outside going up and down, you know, over by Walmart and so forth. But sometimes you're using nomenclature that you expect everybody already understands. And people, you know, like me are new, and as I said, I'm not overly obtuse. I try to catch on fairly quickly. But please, I think you need to consider when you're introducing a subject you think everybody knows, context is really important. That's all I wanted. No, I'm done. So that was just nothing bad, but I just think you need to take consideration.
Anyone else? Okay, so we will close the second public portion of the meeting. Additional council and manager comments, Tom? Councilman Topper?
Yeah, just real quick, talk about the merchants that are here. The idea of a May the 4th space themed event. I have several movie quality laser swords that I might geek out about. We talked about that a little bit a while ago, but while you guys are here, I just want to toss the idea at you. That's all.
Hold on 1 second.
Laser sword, got it.
Close, no copyright.
Yeah, I know, I cringe because we've been video recording and we've been using the HP word a few times tonight, but Councilman Dixon?
Okay, so.
Yeah,
Oh.
Councilwoman.
I do have
Diglio.
something. I forgot to mention this. I've been working with Kimberly and I've been working with the fire department on the Halloween parade this year. And in addition to the regular age groups that we're going to have, there's going to be a senior citizen who wants to dress up and be judged. There'll be even a group for dogs. So if someone wants to dress up their dog, and Bonnie's wonderful to have donated the prize for that. So, and there'll be a trunk or treat. And so we're gonna have that all set up along the sides of the parking lot. And so, just spread the word, and there's gonna be a prize for the best trunk that's been decorated. And so we're kind of expanding it this year and making it a lot more interesting. And so, just spread the word, please.
5 o'clock on
5
Halloween.
o'clock on Halloween.
Yep, looking forward to being part of that and judging that.
Yeah.
Expect all dogs entered in the parade to be licensed.
They had better, yes.
And
have
cats.
their tags on. And cats that might be in there. Yes, we'll have applications available. Deputy Mayor Flynn.
Yes. Okay, so my thoughts on the Wizards event. And I'll just give my advice, my thoughts to the council and some advice to Tom as he goes to negotiate this. There's gotta be a way to make this happen. There's gotta be a concession that's made on both sides. As far, if it's a little bit of the town portion in escrow, I'm okay with that because I think the event brings far more to the town than all of our expense. I don't wanna shoulder it all, but potentially might need to negotiate that a little bit. As far as the number of people, I heard all these numbers thrown around last year, 35,000 people. I'm not sure what 35,000 people looks like. There was a lot of people on the street last year. You know, I came down to visit, I spent hours there. It was almost impossible if you had a wallet full of money to spend it on the street. So if even there's 7,500 people and we think there was 30,000 people last year, and you're actually able to get more of those people into your stores, and more of those people are actually able to eat and drink on the street, because a lot of people weren't even able to do that last year because there was no vendors. I think you're talking about an economies of scale that would still be a radical business day for everybody on the street, even at 7,500. If it's even a little bit, 7,500 sounds a little bit low to me. I feel like the street from Lower Spring Street to the square could probably handle more than that. I don't know what that looks like. Again, that would be like a decision that someone could make with a meter counter on people. But you know, if people can enjoy the space a little bit more and actually like buy things in the stores, because I came down with I think I came down with a group of like 8 relatives. It was pretty hard for us to get anything on the street. Just a bottle of water wasn't even around. So there's going to be vendors to service the people. So I don't think we need 35,000 people. If that was the number and that's too much because due to safety, I can see that. But I think, we don't even have events that come anywhere near that. And if there was that many people circulating through this year, if it's done better this year, better organized, you're able to get more people into the stores, and there indeed is a lesser number, because if you do charge at the gate to get in, the number's gonna drop significantly, as opposed to just being able to just walk onto the street. So that will curb crowd control in and of itself.
So Tom has this meeting tomorrow, and I had a conversation yesterday with the president and CEO of the Brothers and Big Sisters, and I think that some of those comments, my comments, were misrepresented in a meeting that occurred last night. I wasn't going to address this, but people have said it. So first of all, what I communicated was that safety is first and foremost the concern, and limiting liability to the town of Newton. Period. End of story. Safety is of utmost importance. With regards to the calculations, that 2.5 per car parking space number came from me, and that was in a conference call that I participated in a planning meeting just a couple of weeks ago. And that has come from my 20+ years in event planning and nonprofit experience. I'm very well versed in the way that nonprofits need to balance their revenues and their expenses and the mission delivery and the rest of that. But what I said was that number is not based in science, and was based on the number of parking spaces in and around the town of Newton. I wasn't going out and shuttling people from the other side of the county, etc. So what I had asked and what Tom did and what the police chief did was look at some nationally accepted calculations for festivals and numbers of people that could be accommodated in public spaces. So numbers that have been floating around and have been discussed in amongst sidebar meetings came out of that calculation. Tomorrow will be the first time, quite frankly, that our town manager or our CEO is actually sitting down with Big Brothers and Big Sisters CEO. So this meeting is an important one, because a lot of conversation has been happening via hearsay. With all due respect, Pastor, and some of your comments, I don't know that, all of the facts are equally presented in all of the side conversations that have been happening. So, you know, there are lots of considerations, but as we know, and as an ordinance has been passed earlier this year, actually last year, after last year's event, we had to put protections in place for our businesses, the people that were attending the event, our taxpayers in town, you know, although we are a government entity, we need to make sure that we're protecting all of our stakeholders. And so I have no doubt that Mr. Russo will go into that meeting tomorrow with his facts in place and with an open mind, but we need to understand that there are you know, certain things that we are obligated to take into consideration for the safety and security of everybody attending and for our businesses. And so I look forward to outcome from that meeting tomorrow. And nobody up here or up in administration or over in the police department negates the fact that it's wonderful to have you know, everybody come into town, and it's a wonderful opportunity for the town to be showcased. Of course, we want people coming into town and patronizing our businesses and participating in fun events, and but we need to make sure that that is done in an organized, safe, and efficient manner. So that's all I'll say on that, and we'll continue with the conversations with regards to some timelines and some other facts that have been thrown out tonight. Again, not sure if they've been completely accurate, but we'll look forward to the results of tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah, maybe if I could jump in. So, you know, there's a few issues, you know, if Trump can negotiate with North Korea, I think I can manage an event on Spring Street. So, you know, escrow, the police and public works are estimating 22,500, right? But that's based on the assumption of the letter that was sent from Big Brothers in August, estimating 35,000 people. We know there were not 35,000 people in Newton last year. We're physically not capable of managing that many people on Spring Street. The math doesn't add up. So that became the narrative, but it's a false narrative that now an organization in Morris County is buying into, and it's really unfair to them because they weren't here, they didn't see, they don't know. But Chief Richards worked with our Assistant Director of Public Works. Those are the numbers we're estimating for escrow based on the numbers they're giving us for attendees. Okay, it's math. Now, I know they have a couple issues with it. Conceptually, they object to paying the fees, but it was a resolution February 26th that the council adopted where we talked about escrow and we talked about events. The merchants knew this resolution existed, so did the chamber. Right? This was February 26th. So the Wizard event is under the town endorsed events, which is privately held events the town provides specific assistance to, some of which will be free, others which will include escrow or other fee payment. It's in the resolution that the council adopted February 26th. So I have to follow what you pass as a law. So I need to discuss that with Big Brothers and see, like Deputy Mayor said, maybe there's a way to compromise, maybe we pay public works, they pay police. You know, I will try to work with them on that. But eventually, you know, escrow, there will be an escrow and they will have to provide payment. Head count. The chief used a standard of 1 person per 10 square feet. It's a generally accepted crowd measurement standard employed by event planners and law enforcement agencies nationwide. So when he measured Spring Street, including lower, it yielded 5,000 people. Memory Park yielded 2,000, and that's how we came up with the 7. Now, just saying the number is too low doesn't make it so. The chief is using a formula. It's incumbent on Big Brothers, and I'm going to tell them this tomorrow. They need to come up with an alternative standard by which to measure a safe crowd. They can't just say our number is too low. They need to give me a formula and a standard that they're using to counter the number that the chief of police, who has to sign off on this, has come up with. Our population is only 8,000. So we're talking about an event where for 4 hours we're doubling our population. And you know, there used to be a time when I was town manager where if we had 500 people or 1,000, we patted ourselves on the back as if that was a significant and special event. Now we're talking thousands and tens of thousands, and that's great, but we still got to go back to safety being the primary concern. You know, we're only 3 square miles. We're talking about, you know, a small area in town. This is a private fundraising event for a group in Morris County. They're not located in Newton, and they're not located in Sussex County. So we have to determine, as a municipality, how much of the taxpayer dollars of the town of Newton are we spending to benefit an organization in Mountain Lakes. Great group, they do great work, but there's a balancing act between the publicity portion, the showcase to the merchants, and the fact that we're running a community, and we're entrusted to spend taxpayer dollars wisely, and the group that we're benefiting predominantly is not in Newton or Sussex County, which, according to the resolution, the event must be sponsored by a private nonprofit organization located within the town of Newton or county of Sussex. Okay. So we're stretching that because of their affiliation with the chamber, because we're trying to work with them. You know, so there's a lot of moving parts here. Closing the street. The Big Brothers organization has intentions, they've started already, of selling tickets or wristband access to some or all of the areas. Now, when I hear wristbands or tickets, I hear private event, because that's something very different than Newton Day, which we don't charge for, Fall Festival, Memorial Day, holiday, or St. Patrick's Day parades. So if some group is charging wristband or tickets, then we're blocking off the street, because then you're limiting access because you're asking people to pay. Okay. Now we're blocking off the street, which affects the number of people that can participate. The chamber would argue that they probably want it open. So Big Brothers wants it closed, the chamber wants it open. So there's competing interest on the other side that we're not going to get in the middle of, but we're going to try to find a compromise to see if there's a way to have an event that's open, but there's access, and I'm not saying there's an easy answer, but we're not looking to recreate last year. Last year was a catastrophe. It was unsafe, it was unplanned, and it was mismanaged, and we're lucky nobody got killed, okay? So, like, the businesses may have done well, but they were inside selling their wares, and we were in a panic on the outside seeing what was going on. And there was a fire call, and people thought it was part of the event, and it was unsafe, and vehicles couldn't get to where they needed to. We can't recreate that, so the poor planning of last year can't continue with this event for this year. Then they talked about vendors, right? So I know that there was the potential that there would be vendors on Spring Street. We had about 36 or 34 for the Fall Festival. Let's say you had about 40 for this Wizards event. If you're setting up tables, chairs, and tents, now you're limiting your standing room access for visitors. So now you're cutting down on the number of people that can access the street because you're having tables, chairs, and tents. So that 5,000 number for Spring Street at maximum attendee capacity gets reduced. It doesn't get increased because there's vendors now. So that's a competing interest as well. They're looking to charge money for the tickets to access the event. That's fine. They came up with the $17.5 based on the parking number that the mayor had given. Based on that and a rough average for what they're looking to charge, Big Brothers Big Sisters would generate approximately $112,000 in revenues for a Morris County-based organization, while the Newton Chamber, if they got $100 for each of the 40 vendors, would get $4,000. There's a little bit of disparity there that I'm not saying that means we won't have the event, but that's something that we all need to consider, that most of the money, if there is profit from this event, is going out of town and out of county, and that's something we have to be cognizant of, okay? Because how much do the taxpayers have to pay for this? In August, Big Brother sent us a letter regarding the event. They said there was 35,000 attendees. That triggered red flags by the chief of police.
And Tom, that was the first official communication
First official
that we
written
received,
correspondence
right?
received
Regardless of
in
other
August.
meetings or
Right.
whatever happened.
August 2018, that's when we ramped up. Kimberly Blames, my community development director, set up a meeting, was attended by my office, police department, clerk's office, public works, representatives from the chamber and Big Brothers were also in attendance. So that's when we officially started planning, was that letter came when we had that meeting. Forget previous mayor, previous deputy mayor, spring, no, when that letter came, that's what started the process. And, according to our auditor, who was here, we're not permitted as a municipality to make donations to nonprofits. We can support the fire department, we can support the first aid squad, those are legally permissible by statute. We purchase tickets for chamber events, we provide, we buy tickets for meetings, dinners, conferences, function, we provide support for events, we sponsor and we co-sponsor. We don't get to pick winners and losers in the nonprofit space. There's no statute that allows for towns to make donations to nonprofits. We checked with the state of New Jersey today just to make sure that I have my facts straight when I meet with this, the president and CEO tomorrow. So we're not going to just give away services because then they're in-kind donations that we're giving to a nonprofit, and we're not supposed to do that. So we have to figure out a way, and this is my goal tomorrow, is how do we have an event that's safe for the town, for the residents that are here and the visitors that come? How can we showcase the merchants and the businesses on Spring Street that we want to be successful? How can we help Big Brothers Big Sisters? They're putting a lot of time and money into the event, so I have to be very cognizant of the fact that it's their volunteers, it's their insurance, they're coordinating the PR and marketing, music. Like, I don't minimize the commitment that they're putting into this, even though they're not in Newton and they're not in the county. I mean, that says a lot about their character and that they think this can work. But we're gonna give a little, but we can't give a lot, and we can't give it all because it's not fair to the people here that pay taxes here. It's not fair to the 5 of you, and it's not fair to the police department. We're gonna have to pull police from Sparta or another town. It's not fair to my guys that are giving up their Saturday, coming in at 4 a.m. for the parade, and then I'm gonna have guys come in for this event. Like, there's a lot of things here. It's doable, but it is by no means as simple as some people have made it out to be. It's not. So, thank you.
No, and as I indicated, and clearly, as Tom has illustrated, he's well prepared for tomorrow's meeting, as I had no doubt that you were. So we'll look forward to the results of that meeting tomorrow. Any other council or manager comments at this time for the good of the order? All right, we have no executive session tonight, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:09.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion by Deputy Mayor Quinn, and a second by Councilwoman Diddo to adjourn at 9:09. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you all for being here.